you think at the end of a movie, there's a long list of, names there, right?
That nobody sees.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Maybe no one takes account for, but that's what's, I guess, hard for maybe a normal film goer that would go and watch a film, probably not appreciate how much work and how many people are involved to kind of like put it together and like even to get it to that point to, see in a theatre or, on Netflix or something like that.
Well, I mean, I have a bit of a challenge for you then. What I would suggest you guys do is whenever you guys discuss a film, watch the credits and stop it at a random point partway through the credits and pick one of the names and just IMDb them and see what else they've worked on, see what else they've done. Yeah. Are there aspirations to always be a second unit stunt operator or whatever?
Yeah.
There are so many different roles and different scales of project that someone who is directing something smaller won't go anywhere near that kind of role on a larger piece. And so all of us need to have multiple skills in order to get consistent or reasonably consistent work.
Because that's the hardest part, especially in Australia, that there isn't, it isn't like bustling. Like, I guess, I don't know how many people would think about, the Australian industry in general, but compared to like Hollywood, everywhere, it seems like it's always going. But here in Australia, it's a bit more tough to like get constant work. So you kind of have to be that kind of jack of all trades, or at least have an understanding at every level of the filmmaking process.
Well, that's the thing that we've been talking to some of the professionals in the industry as well. And they said that a lot of the work in the film industry in Australia are actually from different countries.
Yes.
China or America. And especially during COVID as well, when everything is shut down in Australia, being the country with the most strict lockdown rules, they move a lot of the production to Australia.
Well,
So,
okay, so kind of the simple answer there is with the amount of money that goes into filmmaking as a whole, with the amount of moving parts that there are, Australia's population isn't big enough to support an Australian film industry on its own. Quite frankly, we require films from overseas to be moved here and shot here, and that's where the work comes from. That is correct. But if you think for a second that every single one of those films isn't in Australia because Screen Australia or the state bodies haven't made their particular state look more promising than shooting in Poland or in San Francisco or in Toronto. I mean, that's kind of why those screen bodies exist. You could make an argument that they exist more to promote Australian storytelling, but largely they exist to promote Australia as a location for film to be done, for money to be brought into the country through film.
So not so much about cultivating Australian films or culture. It's more about bringing it in.
Absolutely.
It's not about cultivating Australian culture. That's kind of it doesn't exist on a binary. It has multiple purposes, and the things that it will provide funding for will fit one or more of those purposes.
That's fair. Because it is tough. That's what I mean. Like we've talked, like what Darren was saying, we've talked to a few people. It's like it's not quite that easy just to like get in, but then also have like a consistent work. So it's just always interesting to hear it. It's just like at what kind of level are we at here in Australia to kind of like...
Well, I think there's something to be said about what generates more money for Australia. And this is incredibly cut and dry. This is like no sympathy for anyone involved, really. Is an Australian story that's made for $2 million that ends up on Netflix, with barely any residual potential. Let's not go into streaming services and all that.
Yeah, I know, that's all a bit.
But yeah, so it's a question of whether that's going to generate more money than bringing $500 million of one of the Chris's action films down.
Yeah.
So it's... There are questions, there are checks and balances to this. And yeah, there are definitely more Australian stories that can be told, and there are brilliant Australian storytellers who haven't quite found either the correct way to pitch or the correct medium through which to tell their story. Both of those are very possible. But at the same time, one of the responsibilities that Screen Australia faces is keeping Australian films employed, filmmakers employed. And so it's compromise, I guess.
That is the end of the episode. Let us know what you think about the conversation in the comment section below, and smash that like button.
Ring the bell and subscribe as well, and you better be back next time.
And we will see you in the next episode.